So, the first thing we're talking about while we're recording is version control. Obviously, I just was mentioning about the migration of assets, only migrate the things to the marketplace. Some marketplace assets can be like 60 gigabytes. You don't want to put that in your project, only the essential files. Um, always, I have a presentation that I gave you guys for SVN, which I could just go ahead and bring that up. Um, this is a little bit too egregious. All right. So the SVN. Okay. I will be. So the main thing to remember is when you're doing source control, is you don't need to sync every single folder. There are some folders that are junk folders. You don't need your intermediate in your save folder. If you're not using C++, the only real important folders are the content in the project file itself. When you're setting up your initial repo, you find the folders, you add everything in, and again, you can review the documentation. You add everything in, and then you find your saved and your intermediate, and you go to Tortoise SVN and you say add to ignore list, unversion and ignore. These are like crash files, and you generate them every time. In fact, if you have problems with your project, you can sometimes just delete the saved folder, and it will actually refresh your stuff. Config folder, you can save it config as like different render settings, things that are in your project settings. That's your config folder. It's how you arrange the windows and the layout of your windows. If you want to sync it, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. Go ahead and do it just so that no one has any confusion for right now. And then if you do have errors because somebody, like your internet cut out or it took too long to sync, there is a cleanup command you'll have to run. It'll tell you, run the cleanup command. You're like, where's the cleanup command? Well, that's underneath Tortoise SVN, cleanup, and find the first 6 boxes, and it just basically says refresh everything, sort through all your files, make it look nice, and then it'll allow you to sync. Getting errors, getting conflicts, all stuff, that all happens. That's part of the whole process. It's fine. One of the ways you can help to not have conflicts is to use Unreal Engine as your version control. Right, so in the bottom right, you can say connect to version control. Again, this is in the presentation I provided. You're using Subversion. My repository is I think I'm the only one who has access to that one. There we go. So here's mine. It'll know if this is the right URL. It'll say this does not match otherwise. And then you put your username and your password. And then it says connected, and it'll be green. Sometimes it can slow down if you're like on Wi-Fi. It's important because now you have all these revision control options, and you can do things like, oh, I don't want anyone to go into my level showcase. I'm checking it out. It'll go to the cloud, it'll lock it out, and now there's a checkbox. And it says it's edited by current user my side, but if you're on another computer, it'll say edited by Todd. And as you edit things, it'll automatically lock it and check it out and stuff. This is just important so people don't work on the same file at the same time, right? You might have noticed that you guys are like trying to work on the same level, and that gets in the way. One thing you could do is do stackable levels. Let me show you real quick. So if we look at our style guide, Unreal Engine style guide, and we go down to levels, there we levels and maps. Nope. There we go. You see how they have a persistent map with the underscore P? Persistent means it's always there. Oftentimes, I'll make a persistent map blank. And that blank map is like the main map that way if somebody opens it up and they accidentally check it out, it doesn't matter because nothing's actually in there. And what they do is like the audio team will have their own map, the lighting team will have their own map. So this is a way you guys can work on one map with that are kind of, but you can check out certain sections of the map. These can be side by side, or they can be on top of each other. So let's see if I actually have Unreal Engine. I'll open up something. Okay, I don't have that one here. Cool. So let's just do that real quick. So for instance, I'm going to create a new map, and I'll make it empty. And then in my windows, I have a window for levels, and here it calls it persistent. It's not named persistent. That's just what they call it. It's the thing. Persistent means it always exists. It persists always. Right? And from here, I can add levels that are already existing. I can create new levels, right? So I can create a new level. You're going to freeze on me all there already. All right. Cool. It's just using all my memory. Let's add a new one, or let's add one that already exists. So let me crash that real quick. Open it back up. So let's say I have I make a new one, new level, and first of all, I'll make an empty level for persistent. So let's save that. You got to put something in there for it to be able to save. I'll just add it like an empty actor. All right, so this is the persistent level. I'm going to save it, and this will be under assets, maps, and whatever your project is, Natura underscore P, which is how the style guide said, or P underscore Natura, and this is our persistent level. So let's say I have another level with an atmosphere, all right, and this one could be LVL atmosphere. And then I'm going to make another blank level with just like geometry. Sphere. Alright, so just a bunch of spheres. Cool. Now if I save this one, LVL geometry, and I go back to my persistent level, Natura P, I think I can now just drag these in these days. Yeah. So now I'm stacking these levels on top of each other. So, and I go here, I have my atmosphere, right? So these levels are on top of each other. I have 3 levels I'm working in. One person can be working in atmosphere, one person can be working in geometry, and maybe we leave the persistent level where no one's in it. That way, if it gets locked, you're okay. Right now, atmosphere is the level that's being edited because it's blue. Double click on geometry, now it's blue, right? You can also switch between levels here, which one is active, and why is that relevant? Because if I add something new, it'll be added to those levels, right? So if I want to make sure I'm adding in geometry, I need to go to my geometry map just to keep it organized, all right? And then now as I add in a cube, let's do like here. Cube. It's being added into geometry. If I turn it off, all my geometry's gone, and now my atmosphere is gone. Right? Right now, you probably can't even see it. There's a tiny little blue dot next to it. That means it's only loaded by blueprints. We're not going to use blueprints in this case. We're not doing like you go through a trigger box and a door opens and then there's another room there. That's how we'd use that one. You want to make these change the streaming method and have them always loaded. I'm calling these sublevels, but a lot of people call them streaming levels, and that's what it says changing the streaming method. Just say they're always loaded, and then you basically have levels stacked on top of each other that are all being can be used by different individuals. Going back to your outliner, it might be really confusing to have a whole bunch of different stuff. And this little gear on the very top, say, only show me things in the current level. So right now I'm in atmosphere, so I'm seeing the sky atmosphere. If I switch over to geometry, I'm only seeing the geometry in this outliner. So this is the way you can navigate this. And then when you're like, well, why can't I see my atmosphere anymore? You're like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm not in atmosphere. Right? That is super useful to work in that method, especially if you are in version control inside of your engine. I guess that when I crashed it didn't save that version control, which was over here. Copy. Boom. Cool. Great. And then I can now say what are the changes I have, and it'll ping the cloud and compare my stuff to its stuff, and I can submit through the game engine. I find it very slow to commit entire days worth of work through the engine. I usually close it out and use Tortoise or Snail if you're on a Mac. But when you're just like, if I'm talking to somebody like, hey, I need the persistent level back, you can just check in individual files, and that is useful not to close down your whole engine when checking in certain files. All right, so I have a change list of all sorts of stuff I need to check in. And you can see it starts adding in these icons as it pings the internet and stuff. So again, I would want to upload all these changes, but maybe if I just wanted to upload the persistent for somebody else to work on because they want to add their sublevel to it, I would just revision control, mark it for add, and then just check in that one. Say this is for teammate, and then on Slack or GChat or iMessage or whatever, you say, okay, it's checked in. Go ahead and pull those changes so that you can get that map back. All right, so that's kind of the workflow for doing that. And then I do want to emphasize again that if you're going to add in marketplace content to install to some sort of junk project on your local folder or local computer, and then the easiest way is to put everything into like a map that you want to migrate over, and then right-click on a map and say Asset Actions Migrate, and it'll bring everything in that map. So for instance, my geometry, LVL geometry, if I want to migrate that one, Asset Actions, Migrate, it'll bring that map. The geometry is included in the engine, so like it's not going to bring spheres and cubes with it because that's already going to exist. But if I'd added textures, it would have done that stuff. And remember, you want to find the content folder of the project you're syncing it to. So not a subfolder, not where you want to place it. It's going to put it exactly where it is in this project and the next project. So that's another issue I'm seeing where people are migrating, and they're migrating to subfolders, and then it's nesting projects within other projects. So if I want to bring this over to my sandbox project, so I'm kind of doing the reverse, I'll make sure I'm putting it into content. Select folder, and then it migrates over. It'll probably prompt you to save too first. So save all. Great. Cool. So audio. I hope you've been capturing audio. A useful tool. I know that we do get Adobe Creative Cloud Um, students, delete. I've been using this software since it was called Cool Edit Pro in my freshman dorm before Adobe bought it. So there's a lot of features. You can do multi-track editing. We just care about single waveform editing. You can also record, right? So if I want to do my voiceover for my ride, just say the record button. You don't need to do, so for the sample rate, this is DVD quality, yeah, whatever. You don't really need to do it that high quality, so I usually reduce it a little bit. Stereo, if only if you want it to fill your ears, if it's like a menu. Otherwise, everything you're doing in game should be mono, so it can be spatialized. It's a single channel of audio living in space. And then bit depth, you're not using anything above 16 for a game engine anyway. And so this could be voiceover. And then say OK. And now I'm probably not choosing the right device, so let me go over to my preferences, audio hardware. It might not let me choose it just because I'm recording it in OBS too. Can I do it? Let's see. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Right? So I'm recording audio here. I'm recording audio there. Great. Cool. You can trim it. And then I don't go anywhere beyond just the favorites. The favorites can be, first of all, if you're finding audio from Freesound or something like that, you can convert it to mono with that button right here. I like to make all my audio the same volume. So we normalize it to -3 decibels, right? And that way it has all of them, if everything is at the same volume, that way you can work with mixing a lot easier in the game engine. Cool. And then we're going to go ahead and put it in, you go ahead and export it. So I'm going to say File, Export. And we're going to export it as a WAV file. My downloads, and again, I've already done my settings, but you can change the settings here. Change it to 44,100 for sample rate, which is CD quality, mono, and then 16-bit depth. Say OK, and it already has a name because I already called it that when I created the thing. And then there you go. Then in Unreal, when I bring it in, let's go to Content, Assets, Audio, make a new folder. Drag it in. And you can see that it has a representation of that waveform. So there's a way to spot check. Oh, it's mono. It only has 2. If it was stereo, it would have 2. If mono has 1. It was the best of times. It was the worst of time. Whatever, it's coming through this monitor over here. There you go. It was the best of time. There we go. There's my voice. And then there's a lot of settings when you're working with audio, and you can just drag an audio file in here and it'll automatically play. But I like to actually, and we're going to need to do this more. You want to have there's its own kind of blueprints for audio. If you right-click on an audio file, it's called a queue. It already creates a name called whatever the sound file is _Q. And now when you open it up, you have like a little blueprint editor. I double-click this. It was the best of times. It still does stuff. It was the worst of times. Right, so I'm recording audio here. Yep, there you go. But you have little nodes you can do on the other side of it. Right, so if you're like, for instance, doing, you can make it loop with a looping node. We can do attenuation, which will have an attenuation node. It has fall off, right? So you get closer, it's louder. When you get further away, it gets quieter. Some things that are interesting, like Doppler. You guys ever see like an ambulance going by? It's right. It's compressing the waveform as it comes towards you, so it makes it higher pitched. And as it leaves behind you, the waveform is stretched out and it's lower pitched. You can actually do Doppler effects, so things go meow, meow, meow. I'm sure we could do a better explanation with some graphics. So a lot of really cool things. You can mark it for mature, right? So you can make it. If people choose a menu rating, it won't say the bad words. If you're doing a rating for your game, I do like. Let's see. modulator. Modulator is good in that it gives a different pitch. It gives a random pitch. It raises and lowers the pitch and raises and lowers the volume every time you do it, so that it gives, like, if you're doing like gunshots, something like that, everyone's slightly different. Right. So if I do it, modulate between 0.8 and 1.2, put it in between. Or I can do something really crazy, so it just will. Oh, is that the most it will do it? Let's see. Let's do 0.5 and 2. So now it was the best of time. It was the best. It was the best. It was the best of time.
It was the best of times. It was the best of times. It was the best of time. It was
So
the
that
best
was
of
an
times.
extreme example, right? But it gives
Right,
a
so I'm
different
putting on
pitch
it
every
here.
time. It gives a different pitch every time.
It was the best of time.
It was the best of time. It was the best of time.
It was the
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
I'm a
Right, so
DJ.
I'm putting on it here.
Cool. So now you guys get the idea of the beauty of that. And then when you put them in to your file, your folder, it also has a picture of like a sound. All right. Cool. So with the setup we have out there, if we go back to the syllabus, we have documentation on multi-channel audio. We have it set up for 7.1 surround audio over there. A lot of the stuff you don't need to know. We put it in here so that you have it as a reference if you're putting on a brand new computer. This is a sound card that we're using. It has 8 channels. It has a bunch of channels. It has 8 physical outputs, right? If you ever needed to do this on install the software on another computer, it's fine. But this has already been set up. So this slide's already done. This stuff's already done. This is already done. This is done by, if anyone knows Harsh, that's his slide right here. Probably some of the best documentation I've seen at school right there. All right. So here's our 7 channels, right? We have side channels, back channels, center channel, and then a subwoofer. Cool. And then Focusrite is the brand. It has its own software. Everything should be working fine. And then if you're in Windows, you need to make sure that you're configuring your speakers for a 7.1 surround sound thing. So this is already done for you. It's just here in case you need to do it later on in life in like 20 years. And then make sure, obviously, that your computer is using the Focusrite as the output. So you saw me change my output settings to like the overhead things. It would say Focusrite in here, right? And then once you have that, Unreal Engine has a plugin called Resonance, and we just need to make sure we're enabling Resonance, and it just figures out 7.1 for you. You don't have to do any like, this one goes to that channel, this one goes to that channel. It's just, it'll be in 7.1 for you. So make sure Resonance is plugged in. I'm pretty sure that it is. Resonance, yes. So this used to be experimental plugin. It's now built in by default. And so this is just telling you how to convert your sound to mono audio using Adobe Audition. And then you need to create some resonance audio settings. And that you want to do what's called like a head transfer. So you want to make sure that it understands that you're rotating around a head. All right, so right click, where does it say audio? And there's a section for resonance. And you want to create a resonance audio spatialized settings. Open it up, and by default, it's already set the right thing for you. That's great. Cool. Now, inside of your cue and your attenuation settings, we need to create an attenuation settings to put the resonance thing in real quick. Go back to the documentation so we're not switching a step. So now create a sound attenuation. So audio, let's see, it's under spatialization. Audio, I don't have spatial. Sound attenuation. Here's sound attenuation is here at the very top. Okay, so that's a attenuation file for spatialization. You can make a bunch of these, but essentially I want to choose my spatialization plugin settings right here, and I could take I could choose resonance, and this is about the fall off. So 400 centimeters from here to 400 centimeters, it's at 100% loudness, and at further away, it falls off at 3600. I go to my attenuation settings. I choose spatialization, which automatically load in my resonance. And just for the hell of it, I will add in also Doppler. And now you see this fall off visibly, right? Everything inside of this circle is 100%, and as I go further and further away, it gets quieter and quieter until if I'm outside the big circle, I can't hear it at all anymore. Sometimes though, or actually all the time, if you go out of here and you can't hear it anymore, the sound will go to sleep. It's like a garbage collection thing. You can actually choose for that not to happen. Here we can say, well, it's in the settings real quick. Let's not skip sections. And we need to make sure, sorry, that we're doing binaural. Yes, so binaural. 2 ears. Cool. And then if I don't like the way it sounds, if I can't hear it, I can always go into my attenuation settings and maybe increase the size. Save. And now you can see that the circle's got much bigger. So if you want to have different settings, if some things you want to be quieter, you might have to make multiple attenuation settings. But as long as you load in the resonance audio plugin to that attenuation settings, you keep on reusing it. You can just do a different attenuation setting for every single audio. It's just going to be really, it's going to take a little bit of effort. It's a little redundant. So I usually try to create one that I think is good, or it's a couple that are really good, and keep using it. Cool. Making it work.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Right, so I'm recording audio here.
Let's see, I went outside of, oh no, it's not looping, right? So let's go back over to here and choose virtualization. We want to make sure that it plays even when it's silent. That's what I was looking for before. That way it doesn't turn off when you go out of the thing. And then make sure that it's looping. There you go.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Right, so I'm recording audio here, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Right, so I'm recording audio here, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Tale of Two Cities. There you go. So that's that is resonating, and it'll hit all 7.1 for you. So give that a test. It's a lot of fun. Cool. And you can always attach these things. You can put these in blueprints. They can be animated, right? If it's a bird flying above you, your sequencer. All right, this is sequencer for birds. You can take your voiceover cue, start it with the transform, and then at the end, it could be over here. All right, so you don't have to see the birds for them to be animating. But they obviously would be way above you in the sky. Cool. And again, I'm adding everything to atmosphere. If I made a mistake and I want to move it to another level, I can take my sequencer, my voiceover cue, go to my level, and then right click on that level and say move. Let's see, move selected actor to level. And I've now moved it to level geometry. I might have to reconnect it, but I moved those two things together. So now I'm in level geometry, and indeed my voiceover and my sequencer are in that level because I accidentally put it in the wrong level, and now I've fixed that, and I can then check back in on my levels. Cool. Some other fun stuff we have here is haptics. This is also this is an example of some haptics information. So what I have here is a small power stereo. And I'll show you what this looks like on Amazon. This is what people use for cars. They want to make cars shake. And we could do it for movies. We can add this to all sorts of things to make them shake with just audio files. So if you go to like Amazon, this is a stereo amplifier. The one that I have is, yeah, something like that, $25 for one of these things. And then there's a company, these are what are called bass transducers. These are like a speaker without a cone. But if I want to actually get an expensive one, the brand is called Butt Kicker. And these are literally what you put behind underneath your car if you want to make your car shake. The brand's called Butt Kicker. These are just $10 bass transducers that are plugged into the stereo outs. And what is cool with these is if you ever do like an installation at a storefront, you put these on the window and it turns the window into a speaker. That's how you get music outside without putting speakers outside. These have a bunch of screws. You can attach them. They make ones that are more designed that are lighter weight, that are just turning glass into instruments. So here I'll turn basically I'll turn the table into a speaker. So are you the right one? Okay, so let's get an audio file. I already got one. Let's go back up to Audition. Do a new track. I'm going to call this one Baby. And we're going to load in this banging song called Baby from Justin Bieber. It's a great way to test bass because it bounces. We can trim it however we want to. But it's important to know the beginning of Baby is actually doesn't have those hits. Oh, actually, I already cleaned this one up. This one just starts with the hits. Great. But this is potentially, let's see. So I've already cleaned this one up. Let's do this again. From the MP3 file. So here's the spectrum analysis, and this is from low at the bottom and treble at the high. We don't want to use this as our speaker system. Our speaker system is actually getting stuff from maybe Unreal. We want to maybe just use, like for instance, Max. Max can override and send additional audio to a separate audio system, but we don't want to hear the music. We just want to hear the bass. We just want to hear the hits. So we can actually come in here and grab everything over 80 hertz, which is not bass, and just delete it out. And now we just have a bass track. So now, if anyone's interested to hear what Baby sounds like, okay, so we're going to save this one out. Save file, export. And then 16-bit mono, whatever, that's all good. Although it looks like it's stereo to me, so I'm going to convert to mono. There we go, confirmed. Doesn't really matter on this one because we're going to be doing it max instead. So close this up. And let's open up max real quick. And then, you know, if you're working with your project and you want to have some things that you're working on, like a main model or some assets you want to keep on reusing, I sometimes make a folder called imports that lives next to my project. Make sure you add it to your repo. And like, for instance, I want to keep on using this audio file. I would maybe want to drag this and save my max patch to this folder as well. So I'm going to put Luda here. And then you can just take audio files and drag them into Max. So just drag it in. And then even though Unreal, again, this is going to be a separate computer too, even though Unreal is sending out to 7.1, you can go to audio status, and Max can go to its own channel. So this is how you can get two different sounds going out of the same computer. I would choose to do this to the speakers maybe, and then all this is looking for is a 1 or a 0, aka a toggle. Let's see, you're on. No. Going out here. Let's see if my mixer Max should be good. Audio is on. Oh, because it's not going to speakers. So you have to send it to speakers. That's called a digital analog converter. So there's a easy digital to analog converter, and it looks like a speaker, and that would help out a whole bunch. This is a single channel piece of audio, so it should go to both sides. And now you can see it's metering down here. Cool. So baby is playing, and let's now choose that's just the audio from the song, right? Just took out the bass hit. Come on. I shouldn't have been so rough with it. You're plugged in. Well, maybe the other one that works. I don't think it was that one. I think it was this one. Proving that. I must have done something to this thing, but it does work, and then it just vibrates. Super fun. Oh, it wasn't plugged in all the way, maybe. Done. Turn it back on. Go in there. Anyway, it works. I just wasn't plugged in well. I'll cheat and make it go out on this one. Oh, that's interesting. Turn off. It works. Just not the way I intended it. All right, anyway, enough playing around with haptics. I doubt anyone's going to use it anyway, but it's fun. Cool. So, my mouse back. We do have a, so that's audio. Let me make sure I didn't skip any steps with that one. So, attenuation, and then make sure you say play when silent. Otherwise, when you leave, it's attenuation. It just turns itself off as garbage collection. So make sure you say keep on playing even when it's silent. And just follow these steps and you'll have spatialized audio. The relay is quite simple to get going. Here's the PDF. It's this thing out here, outside. It's already in front of the ride machine and the fan's already turned on to it. It has 8 channels that you can turn off and on for heaters and fans and whatever would have hardware, lights, whatever. And then it has 2 that are just always on if you want to power your laptop on it or something like that. The way you go to it is we have on the ProArt, it's connected to a router that's connected to it. And you can go to a browser. And it has its own address, which is 192.168.0.100. If it's on, I didn't check this one today actually. It'll ask me for my admin and my password for this. Make sure that my Wi-Fi is connected to 40. So it's connected to the Wi-Fi. Because the computer restarted. So this is good that I'm having to debug it real quick. And I still have the single relay that works over the Arduino, but this is even more sophisticated. So now it's connected. You can see this. It's admin, and the password's 1234. You see OK, and you can actually turn off and on these things just on the web user interface, right? You can also send it requests. I have already included that max patch here. So it's called, that's the SIP machine. It's called, here we go, network relay. And so essentially you're sending it the login, admin, and the password to that URL, and then saying which outlet you're turning off and on. So I have all 8 channels here already built, turning it off and on. And if we were to listen really hard, we might hear a fan start up over there. All right, so this is a way you can turn on all these things. And again, you're just receiving OSC messages, right? Over the VPN, you're turning on and off these things off of sequencer and whatnot. Cool. So no need to build that one because it's the same kind of methodology as the SIP machine, right? You're sending it some sort of code. This, of course, is going off serial for the SIP machine. And this one's going off of an HTTP request, which is this object called max URL that sends it on the web. Cool. So that's the relay. Let's get out of here. And it tells you the username and password here. All right. Admin, password, that's the URL. And it also physically has buttons on. You can actually turn off and on the physical thing itself if somebody wants to sit down and turn off and on each one of the devices. Cool? So last thing is the multi-screen projection. So we're doing stereo projection. It's already been set up for stereo projection. This one Audie's been working on. So here's the documentation. And it's using Unreal Engine to go to three projectors at once. It's actually going to 3 projectors and a VR headset. This is what it looks like when it's on. And all the steps for setting up projector are here. So in case, like, if it was all broken down or it's next semester and you want to do it, this documentation's here. It is kind of useful to have a The graphics card is what's called a Quadro card. It's a specific enterprise version of NVIDIA that lets you do something called Mosaic, and it lets you turn 3 screens into 1 screen. Again, it's already been set up. Should something go wrong, you can always set up Mosaic again, but basically say, here's 3 screens, in this order, make them continuous, right? And then now we have a giant monitor over there. So if I remote back in over to the render node, it's this big screen, right? So that's 3 HDs wide, right? And no, you don't have to do 3 screens. You could just do 1 center screen if you think it's not that important for your piece and your performance is really, really bad. You could do one screen, and I'll show you guys how to do that in office hours. Right now the projectors are set up for doing. We did our demo side by side, so left eye, right eye to the menu. If you guys remember. So if I go into, let's just save all. If I go into my levels. Did I do it in the demo? I did this projection pawn, right? And it was rendering to a widget called menu, and that menu was side by side, right? You can change the settings on the projectors there and change the projectors side by side. If you want to do top bottom, it's going to be different from this. It's going to be left eye on the top and right eye on the bottom. So instead of saying 960 by 1080, sorry, yes, 960 by 1080, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be 1920 by 540 is your texture resolution. So you would find these textures, right? And we have left eye and right eye texture. We would do top and bottom, right? So you'd say new texture render target, and it's called top, or projection top. So we can find the other one, and here you would say it's full 1920 wide, but it's only half of 1080, so that's 540. Right? They save that. Duplicate and call this one bottom. It'll have the same settings. And you'll have to go over this tutorial again. So what we did was we actually took that tutorial and I cropped it. So it's right here embedded in this presentation if you want to just look at making a single screen stereo camera. And I just trimmed it so it's just the part about that. So just go over that again to refresh your memory if you want to do single screen. Otherwise, Unreal Engine has something that is called in-display that is actually what turns Unreal Engine into a media server. It's maybe not as important, I guess, on a single computer, but when you start running LED walls and things that take multiple computers, like you can have 40 computers that are completely synced with each other, that's what in-display does. It's what basically is like if you want a job in virtual production, it's what most people get jobs doing is operating in-display because it's the thing that's maybe a little hard to figure out. But we kind of did the work for you so that all you need to do is add this in-display configuration to your project, essentially. So we're hosting on our Google Drive. Just download this asset and then drop it into. Have you actually tried dropping it into a project?
Yeah, you just have to.
Enable in-display. So by default, if we didn't set this up as a template for virtual production, you need to make sure that your plugins that you have in-display turned on. It's in the instructions. So turn it on. And then save and restart. And before I restart, I will. Oops, wrong one. I will put it in my content folder, and I like to put mine in my blueprints. So assets, blueprints. And see, it's a U asset file like the other ones. So this is if you want to do the 3 screens, and this handles the stereo projection for you. I mean, once you make the settings. If you're ever bored and you want to read about in-display, which is made by a company in New Jersey, you can pop on over to the documentation. Right, it's all about clustering and doing multi-projector, multi-screen kind of stuff. If you really get bored, you can go to the in-display page and you can look at me.
To play like a musician with this,
Let's see, where am I?
that we knew.
and that's the 12 projectors
That's my
outputting the
blueprints.
image.
Using
We were the first people
in-display
to do,
is basically a
blended projection using in-display. Before then, it only
them
was
downstream into a super high resolution
Singular image.
I had a
We'd
fight
worked
with
so hard
so
on.
not in the video.
of the night. And
But
when
I'm
you
in the
finally
crowd.
see all the thrilling
Somewhere.
to pull off tools like Unreal Engine.
I'm screen recording this too, I know. Anyway, I'm in the crowd. But I also have the
Buddy.
project on that computer that's out there with the 3 screens. I have this Gambino project. If you ever want to go through it, it's kind of crazy. I worked with Weta Digital. They're super awesome folks. So anyway, now that again, back in my day, it was a text file. Now it's actually an interface. So what's cool about this, and that's better than just doing it on the screen, is that you get to have perspective correction, right? So this configuration, if it opens up, is 3 screens, and it accounts for the 45-degree angle between them. So you're actually like looking through it, right? And that's the advantage of using this, is that it's like a portal into a 3-dimensional world, not just 3 screens that are kind of flat, right? So the side-by-side works for 1 screen, but 3 screens, this lets you look through it, and it compensates for that perspective change. So it's a little bit more immersive. So I've already built it for you. It's easy to take apart, but essentially, you have these 3 textures that are mapped to these geometry screens. 16 by 9 screens are built into the in-display. And then you find whatever scene you want to render, and you drag it in, and this is now what you animate. Right? So this is the thing you put in a sequencer that goes around, right? Cool. And we can look through it and see that perspective correction. Right? Isn't that awesome that it does that? So like, for instance, the wall that we have is a curved screen. That's a 3D model of a wall, and we just put it in there because it's a custom configuration. So you can, in in-display, also import in models. But it was essentially designed for like Disney Dish. It was designed for a cave, right? That's why it was built. All right. And to run it, though, it's a little bit different. You need to have some more settings. And what you'll be doing is... we should just follow the documentation. So we've added in the node. All right, so make sure the plugins plugged in, and then I think by default the interpupillary distance is 6.4, just like we're doing in our camera setup in our blueprint. All right, so in display. That'll be. Yes, interpupillary distance is by 6.4 by default. Great, let's save all. And then another thing we need to turn on is switchboard, right, too? Yeah. So let's turn on switchboard. And switchboard is how you control tons of computers at one time. All right, so switchboard, and so instead of hitting play on the Unreal, you're going to be using switchboard to hit play. This, again, it seems like overkill for one computer, but it's really designed to be turning on 100 computers at one time with an interface from a remote computer. All right, again, this stuff is worth understanding because, again, it's not really taught well. Not that I'm teaching it well. So now that I have switchboard installed, I can start a listener, right? So my computer's listening, but my computer's also controlling. So you can have this switchboard controller, this interface, on a remote computer that's controlling a ton of other walls. It needs to install Python, so I don't know if we have enough time for all that kind of stuff. Okay. And of course, it's not really going to run well because I don't have 3 screens on right now, but I could. Who knows how that's going to mess up OBS? So I don't want to re-record this. Anyway, so it's invoking pip install. That's great. Let's go back to the documentation while it's loading up. So again, these projectors are set to top bottom right now because you can't do side by side and make a continuous image. So we're just doing one top band and one bottom band using InDisplay. And again, they should already be set up. One we need to check. And then if you've had a chance to check it out, the glasses look like this. We're going to order a couple more. It reminds me we need a couple more. And they say charge for 100 hours. So they should be pretty much good. There's different kinds of glasses. This is called RF active. They pair over Bluetooth. We have not run into the limitation of how many you can pair at one time. Right now, 2 works on all 3 projectors for at least 2 glasses. We'll see if 4 gets in the way. In the meantime, we see that its installation is completed successfully. I can skip putting it on my desktop or my start menu. And I don't really care about launching it because I'm not going to be a dedicated render node. And then we launch switchboard. Now it needs to know where my path is for my configuration, my InDisplay configuration, and then also where my U project is. So I can look for my project. There we go. Is that it? No, it's looking for JSON file. I need to create that real quick, don't I? Let's see. I also think that by default, let's see, browse for the U project. There's U project file. There we go. Let's see if that'll work. Detect. Okay. Okay, now it's opened it up. And we need to go to settings. And then all the settings we don't really care about except for we want to find the part where it says render to stereoscopic. So that's my local address. That's all fine. There's the things. We're going to find the map in a second. We're not doing source control on this one. I wonder if I'm not connected to one, if it will show it. It should show it though, right? It knows where my project is. It knows which map I want to load in, right? Then I connect to the map, or connect to the project. I need to actually find the right map that has a InDisplay configuration. So that one is in VR template. Connect. And then if everything was running fine, if I had the config file, it would have a play button here, but I think I'm not. Oh, I need to add a device. So I'm going to add in a render node, InDisplay node, and it says where's my config file. Populate, InDisplay. There we go. InDisplay stereo. Okay. Boom. Now I'm ready to go. So again, this would normally be a list of like 50 computers or whatever. Now I can connect. I hit launch, everything goes dark, and it goes up to 3 screens. So this is how it could be running. Now again, listener could be on my computer, and then that render node could be running the project. This could be anywhere. Right now we're just doing it locally. I still want to find those settings though. So now that we have this done, now it sees my configuration, and render mode I want to have top bottom. Now it's ready, and if we didn't have the stereo projection on the projectors, it would actually render out your scene in 2 thin bands across all 3 screens. But with that selected there, and we do launch, it'll launch to, let's just see if I can break it. I don't know. Cool. Give it a second to think. It's going to look into that room. That's probably not a good thing to do to a laptop. And then escape gets you out. I wonder what OBS is doing right now. It's going to go chop you. It's going to. Cool. And then I can close it this way too if I want to, and then disconnect before I leave. Great. So that concludes all the settings. We stumbled through it, but we got everything. We'll do controllers next week. Again, if I was being smart, I would also show when you're done, close everything up, and then make sure that before you leave, you always commit your project to the repo. So I'm just going to right click here and commit, and all my settings are week 12. Cool. So now I've committed, and again I can make these changes here, and then on the render node I can now pull that project in the render node and do whatever I need to. Or that's it for right now. We won't get into multi-user editing. That's just too much. Stick around for virtual production in the fall, and I'll show you multi-user editing. Cool. Any questions about all that stuff? I mean, it's well documented. You just have to go through it step by step. All this stuff isn't hard. It's just a lot of stuff. And that's why we make documentation, so that you can go through the stuff.
When we're making like the ride pond to like control the ride machine,
Mhm.
we want to do the projection or like just go over the wall.
Mhm.
We have to combine both of those elements.
You can parent one to the other one. So if you're using Ride Machine pawn that already there, you just put the in-display config on parented, and then it'll just take it. We haven't had any problems with that. Again, if you do see that creating issues, alert everyone on Slack. We're kind of making this up as we go along. We just got screens up and running. Excited, but we have like 3 weeks to do this, so like we'll figure it out. All right. If something breaks, let us know. We can fix it. But yeah, that's what we've been doing. We've been parenting the display configuration, because you can't put the blueprint code for OSC in there, or the other way around. Take the animate the display configuration, but that way you can watch on your home screen, right, with the regular pawn, and then launch with listener to in display. If I hit play, in display won't render in display by default. It'll do whatever your pawn is on sequencer. Cool.